Hello and welcome to everyone out there in the Actual Tech Media audience. Thank you so much for joining us on the webinar today. The topic is how to transform your enterprise with next generation SD-WAN. This event is presented in partnership thanks to our friends at Palo Alto Networks. We've got a great event lined up for you here today. Before we get started, there's just a few things that you should know about the format of the event. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the host and moderator. As always, we want these events to be educational. We know that you're facing a lot of challenges out there in the world of technology, and we want to help you to solve those challenges here on this event. So as you're going along, listening to the presentation, if you have questions that pop into your mind, we encourage you to post those questions there in the questions pane of the audience console. Many of you have already said hello and good afternoon, and we love to see that. But we also want your technical questions for our Q&A session at the end of the event. And we even have a best question prize on the event today to help maybe further encourage some of those questions. We also have a couple of resources in the handouts tab. I want to call your attention to those. The first one is a free trial link to Prisma SD-WAN. You can try it out for yourself for free. And there's also a number of other resources I encourage you to check out. And as I mentioned, or I should also mention, we have our Amazon $250 gift card prize. I'll be announcing the winner of that prize at the end of the webinar today. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing would have already occurred, and the prize terms can be found there in the handouts tab. And then, as I mentioned, we also have our best question prize. If you have a question on your mind, we encourage you to ask it. We'll be reviewing all the questions that came in after the event and selecting the best question and contacting the prize winner then for our Amazon $50 gift card prize drawing. All right, so with that housekeeping information out of the way, I'm excited now to bring in and welcome today's expert presenter. Welcome to Mr. Bill Pruitt, who's a senior product manager at Palo Alto Networks. Hey, Bill, it's great to have you on the event today.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. Well, it's now your floor. I'll turn it over to you, Bill. Take it away.
Fantastic. Thanks for the intro there. As you can see on the slide here, my name's Bill Pruitt. I'm a senior product manager with Palo Alto Networks. I work in the Prisma SASE business unit, and I focus on SD-WAN very specifically. So what that really means and what I do is my job is to bring a product to you to solve your real business challenges and also your technology challenges in line with that. So that's what I do as a primary function of my job, is to make a product that solves your problems. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to briefly talk through why we think Prisma SD-WAN does that in a way that's unique to the space of SD-WAN. So why we feel we're the best solution for your business needs. We're going to talk through some innovations that align that are just recently coming out as of today, in some cases, on how we're meeting those needs. And then we'll go through a Q&A, and then we'll wrap up on some next steps. So let's kind of get started, right? If we think about the challenges that we have as practitioners, and by the way, I didn't spring out of a college and become a product manager. Like you, I was a network operator for many years at a Fortune 100 insurance company. So I owned my own network, multi-hundred site, large data center. So we've seen these issues. Some of them are still prevalent from years ago, and some of them are new. If you think about digital transformation, right, the prevalence of IoT and other advanced digital technologies in our network, it's kind of presented some new challenges for us and how we solve them as network practitioners. Secondly, hybrid work. Those are with 3 years ago with the pandemic, we saw hybrid work explode, retract a little bit now. We still have this need to secure the user, whether they're coming from a coffee shop in the network, in a remote site, in the corporate office. They could be anywhere. So we have to give them a consistent experience no matter where they're at, and both from a network experience, an application experience, as well as a security posture, right? And the last piece is anything that we've done for the past 25 years as practitioners, we had to keep security in mind. And that's become increasingly important every year, that as network operators, security has to be first and foremost in everything that we do. Now, if you think about how legacy networks were designed, and this was really just a crude example of what my network looked like many years ago, before I came to work in the actual vendor side of the industry, right? I had a lot of branch offices, several hundred of them. I had multiple data centers. I would backhaul all my traffic to those data centers that gave me advanced security services, DLP, IPS, IDS, all those things, my applications, and then send it out to a data center from there, or excuse me, to the internet from there, or wherever I needed to go, third-party partner app, things like that. It was always a hairpin situation where we're sending traffic through those locations that might be distributed around the country or around the world. And in that case, we're going to increase latency, obviously. And and in the legacy network, we had very limited visibility. So that was a lot of, those were the problems we dealt with. And I still talk to a lot of customers who are dealing with these challenges today. So, and if we think about some of the first rounds of solutions that tried to solve these problems, and some did an okay job at that, right? They were still looking at things through really a packet-based, a layer 3, layer 4 based solution, which you can do some decent things, looking at the world through that lens of a packet-based architecture, but there's going to be some problems. And if you think about what the real problem that we're trying to solve is, we're not trying to solve routing problems or packet forwarding problems. We're trying to solve business problems. And it's even more important as ever today to think about how we solve for an application experience. And really looking at things through a packet-based approach hasn't really cut it. And so we still see a lot of customers looking for a new way to solve their problem that really strikes the heart of solving their business challenge, which is delivering an end user experience. Now, those problems are what we focus on. Number one is focusing very narrowly on driving an exceptional end user experience. What that means is that I look at things through an application lens. No longer do I need to think about how to forward packets and route them. We've kind of redesigned the network from the ground up to be a software-defined network that's API-driven versus routing protocol-driven. So that's one big differentiation. The second part is, great, okay, you delivered a user experience, but I need to be able to operate the solution. So providing for simplified day 1 and day 2 operations, it's just super important, right? We have a saying at Palo Alto Networks, since day 1 is one day and it's very important, but day 2 is forever. So you'll see an intense focus on how we do day 2 operations. That's going to make your life easy as a practitioner. And then lastly, with a best-in-class security service edge solution such as Prisma Access and tight integration between the two, that really allows you to improve your security outcomes across your entire network. And we'll dig into the details of each of these things and how we provide those in detail. So first, as opposed to being a packet-based solution, we're an application defined. And that can mean a lot of things. You might hear app aware, app defined, app this, app that. What that means, there's a lot of definitions to it. And what it means to us is the core of our path selection decisions are based upon, number one, identifying applications using App ID technology, which, by the way, is common across Prisma SD-WAN, Prisma Access, and NGFW. We use the same App ID database as of over a year ago. So you have a consistent set of dictionary terms as far as looking at App ID as a consistent thing in the network. That's an important thing. Then also understanding, after you understand what it is, how is it performing? So very granular, detailed measurements of many facets of an application session. Is it successfully connecting? Do you have three-way handshake failures? Do you have transaction failures, retransmissions, timings between round trip time and server response time? Those are important things that you need to understand about the network. And then lastly, we actually have a layer on top of that, which we'll dig into as well, where we can actually do digital experience management, where we have native integrated our ADEM solution, which is actually across our portfolio, across our mobile user clients, Prisma SD-WAN, Prisma Access, and soon to be other platforms in the portfolio. We can get a cohesive view on an application basis across the entire network, no matter where your perspective is being measured from. That could be, again, the mobile user in the coffee shop, or it could be from your branch site, where you're looking at office performance from every perspective. Now, that's an important thing, right? To be able to measure and understand the application, to be able to understand its performance. And what that allows you to do is to get the traffic on the most optimal path whenever it needs to be there, right? To meet its performance SLA. And that's a key thing, is that driving SLAs for applications to make sure that we drive that end user experience. And one thing to note is that the vast majority of those SLAs are not relying upon having a bookended solution. So you don't need to have a Prisma SD-WAN Ion in the branch in the data center or in the branch in the cloud, which all those are possible, of course, but you don't need it. We're able to make path selection decisions independent of being bookended. And that's a really critical component of our solution, is that you don't have to hairpin traffic through a location if it doesn't need, say, for example, security inspection. You don't have to send all traffic to Prisma Access. Only the traffic that you need to send to Prisma Access would go through it, right, for advanced security inspection. Other traffic that's trusted traffic could be on the internet directly, getting its best path based upon the SLA you define for that application. And what that does for you is that opens up really just uh, the need to do complex routing in the network. You don't have to worry about this, is this prefix reachable from here, doing route filtering, doing all these things. Our approach is to eliminate all that. So in the vast majority of deployments, we eliminate routing protocol need in the branch entirely. You don't need any type of land-side routing protocol in the vast majority of cases. And we actually encourage that for our customers. So you get rid of routing. You only need to do that in central locations, wherever you need to do some type of route interchange between a data center or a core network or a cloud, for example. Other than that, you get rid of routing in 99% of your network. And that's really important because, as if you've been like me doing this for 20 years, you spend a lot of time looking through show IP route and this, and looking through all of your fibs and ribs and seeing where packets are going. And it's problematic to go troubleshoot that, design it and troubleshoot it. It's not easy, especially when you have redundant paths in and out of the network. It gets even more complex. You're dealing with tags and route redistribution. It's pretty hairy. So we're trying to eliminate that. And we've done a really good job of that over the past 8+ years of having a solution in place of getting rid of that complexity. Now, I mentioned day two operations being a key part of what we drive, because it is the most important part of consuming network services, is operating the solution, because you're going to do that from now in perpetuity. So let's look at some of the details there, right? So we talked about AI ops is, again, a little bit of an ambiguous term. And I'll tell you what we mean by just a few examples of what we mean by AI ops for networking. So one of the things that we do is we have something called WAN Insights. And WAN Insights are just a part of the platform. They run automatically as part of the solution. And if you think about your operational cadence, you have things that are near-term problems, right? So you've got hey, this VPN is down, or this circuit's down, or this site's down. And we give you really granular policy level control over prioritization, and also some dynamic things where you can tune that to say, hey, the headquarters site or the CEO's home office, these are more important than things, and you can adjust the priority on those types of events. And it's a very granular policy control over that. Then we also do things automatically that aren't necessarily based in the moment. And we do that by taking a kind of a long view approach. And what we do is we look back anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, depending on what we're looking for, to find more chronic issues in the network. These are things that you might be going on for weeks or months or sometimes years, and it could be a random thing that the user's like, I'm sure we've all walked into a coffee shop or an auto dealer and be like, oh, my computer's acting up again, give me a moment. We've all heard that one. And those are the kind of things that we try and flesh out and give you a proactive view into the network. So these are WAN insights. These could be things like, hey, we've developed an ML baseline for loss, for packet loss, for example, or maybe it's latency. And we look for deviations from that, what is normal in your network. And we say, okay, looks like we have excessive packet loss based upon as utilization is increasing, we expect packet loss to increase slightly as well. There's a deviation from that curve. We'll say, hey, you've got excessive loss, anomalies in your network at this time, and we'll give you that readout that looks back again anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, where you can see in detail all the times where you had violations of your baseline norm. There could be other examples, especially in the prevalence of broadband internet, where you might be paying for 100 meg or 500 meg service, 500 meg down, 100 meg up, for example. And we actually look and say, okay, customers configured for this, they're paying, they're paying for this service. And then we look to see if you're able to actually achieve that level of throughput without your application performance being impacted. And we would give that back to you if there was a problem with that, we would give that back to you in the form of an insight that shows up, at a global dashboard and also at a site and a circuit level that says, hey, your circuit is provisioned for 500 meg, but you're actually only able to get to 300 meg down before there's an application impact. So that's one thing that you might spend time not even knowing about, or it might take weeks or months for somebody to actually call in. But now you've got that data right there in front of you, so you don't have to go and dig around and find it. It's there. It's been analyzed ahead of time. We've done the hard work for you. We know there's a problem. We identified the problem and did the analysis on it, and we give you a view of that problem right up front. So pretty powerful stuff. And then lastly, capacity planning is a part of something that we've done for years. A little less common in the world of broadband internet, where you have excessive amounts of bandwidth in a lot of cases, but it isn't the case in all locations in the world. It can be, as you know, there's in South America, we have a lot of customers who are dealing with very limited resources as far as circuits go. In Asia Pac, still a lot of MPLS there that we see. It's because the quality of the internet is poor in a lot of locations. So for those cases where we're still bandwidth constrained, we give you the ability to look out a month, and we do this automatically for you on a per circuit basis. And we say, looks like your capacity at this site and or this circuit is going to be exhausted at this future date. And we look out up to a month ahead of time to give you a notification of that, so we can give you as much heads up as possible that you need to perform some type of upgrade, adding another circuit, increasing the bandwidth of that circuit, doing bonding, whatever your preferred or what's in the realm of possibility for you. You have time to go act on it. So again, all things that help you operate the network more efficiently, taking that burden off you as a practitioner and an operator. Secondly, integrations. So we don't just operate the network in a vacuum anymore. We're not just consoling in and doing our thing like we used to, right? We have a nice fancy UI to operate the network, but we also have other services that we're integrating with. For example, cloud. Everybody's using cloud for the most part in one form or another. A lot of customers have 2 or 3 clouds. We see a lot of customers having AWS, GCP, and Azure. Sometimes a little bit of Oracle Cloud in the mix. We provide integrations into those systems natively. So you don't have to do manual stand-up configuration. Our CloudBlades platform is an enabler to do that with just a few clicks. You take your API keys that you generate from your cloud instance, just really a couple clicks to get those credentials, those keys, import them into the CloudBlade for that particular cloud, and you can really just spin up services in just a few moments. It's a really powerful automation tool. Once you spin up that, you've got an automatic connection from all your branch locations established automatically into your cloud, ready to go. So just a few clicks and you're deployed. If you think about how we would do that in yesterday, right, with a legacy solution, we're talking about procuring a VM, standing up a VM, going through and building tunnels manually. There's so much pain associated with that. And that's all it's just not there anymore. It's just a few clicks to get that set up. And then also we have to operate the solution. Some customers choose to do operations solely within our product. Many do not. They use solutions like ServiceNow. That's a very common one we see. And they'll leverage our ServiceNow CloudBlade. And what that does is, again, just an API key from ServiceNow. We import that into the app, the ServiceNow app inside of our infrastructure. And from that, you just select, hey, I want to send these things to ServiceNow for it to consume. It'll automatically create tickets for you based upon, again, whatever events you want to consume in ServiceNow. That could be things, could be, hey, I want to see site down only. I don't care about VPN slapping. Great, you can do that. And maybe I only want to see them after 10 minutes. You can do that too. That type of integration is important. But we also don't just send it there. We also update the state later. So if the event occurs and then it clears and resolves itself, we'll go through and actually resolve that ServiceNow ticket again if you want it to do that. Other examples are, let's say Microsoft Teams, right? We have a chat bot that is integrated into Microsoft Teams where you can go and ask the chat bot, hey, tell me about my performance at my New York site. How is Zoom performing there? And I'll give you a quick readout. Hey, here's Zoom performance over this time frame. Looks like you're healthy, or maybe you're not. That's the power. No need to log into the console. If you're driving home and you want to ask, you're stuck in traffic, you can ask the question just like that. And then we have Security Cloud Blade integration as well. This is, designed for, of course, Palo Alto Networks security, but we don't just limit it to that. So we support third-party native integration as well into other common platforms you might consume. So just don't think that we only do this for Palo Alto Networks Prisma Access. We do it for other leading providers also. And then hardware. I don't talk about hardware a whole lot. I think SD-WAN is just that. It should be software defined. So everything that we do from a software feature and capability standpoint, there's no platform limitations on that. Any platform can run any piece of software, with the obvious exceptions being features that are hardware dependent, like having LTE or 5G, which we have two different platform lines that support 4G and 5G. And then we have another platform line that supports those in addition to switching. So a PoE powered switching capabilities up to 90 watts of PoE. So you get to this kind of branch in a box format where you've got LTE and or 5G, and then you have PoE with switching, and now you've got a branch in a box solution all with SD-WAN as well. And of course, we support physical form factors, like you can see here, as well as virtual form factors, all the way from a small branch virtual form factor up to a large data center form factor with up to 16 cores in that virtual form factor. All right, having said all that, I'm going to finish out my brag here on my product with this. Okay, so if you look at Gartner, and some people love the feedback and kind of the meta-analysis that Gartner gives about a solution. So we're going to show you quickly here that for both SSE, so SSE is Security Service Edge, think Prisma Access, where you have cloud security, and SD-WAN, we are a leader in both of these magic quadrants. So the SSE is brand new, hot off the press within the past month. That's 2023. SD-WAN MQ comes out around the September timeframe every year, and we're a leader in both. And by the way, we're the only tech company, period, that is a leader in both. Practically, if you combine SSE and SD-WAN, that actually is SASE, right? We've all heard that SASE term. My understanding is there will be a SASE Magic Quadrant this year as well. And we anticipate being in a strong position in the SASE Magic Quadrant where both SSE and SD-WAN are brought together. Now, let's get to, we talked about some of the value propositions of Prisma SD-WAN. We're going to talk through some of the new things. And I'm not really, talking about new things to a customer who is new to our product and platform is a little bit challenging. But all of these things, the thesis or the theses that I've described to you around driving an exceptional end user experience and having superior security and also day two operations. So those are all signified in the things that we're driving from a product standpoint that have come out over the past month. Let's get into these quickly. So the big one, we have been on, let's say, a multi-year journey on how we integrate all of the Palo Alto Networks network security platform products. And we've been working on this literally in phases for years. And we are now on the cusp of a really big release. And I'll tell you how we approach this phase. So look at it very, very clearly, right? We wanted to normalize across the product sets, common terminology and phrases. We wanted to optimize those day one, again, back to operations, both day one deployment and operations day two workflows, because operations is just critical. And lastly, to make it to where there's not big hurdles to consume. And this is, again, bringing together Prisma SD-WAN, Prisma Access, ADEM, and next-gen firewall cloud management all into a single single user interface. So a really powerful management platform. Now, the funny thing is, where did we start as CloudGenix? So I'm actually was an original CloudGenix employee. So going back 6+ years, the UI it was cool back then. Again, it was 6 years almost to the day when I started at the company. But it looks a little funky now if we look at it. I would include this as a reference of where we started at, and you'll see where we've gone to. So we started off in 2020, right? We had Cloud Blade integration that we introduced in 2020, and that was what we talked about earlier, how we can join the two solutions together, do it with standalone like middleware essentially, and use the REST APIs for both the products and bring them together. So pretty basic stuff. Then we started to say, how can we bring these products together from a management layer as well? So we built a framework of how to lay out our management a couple of years ago in 2021. I started working towards getting everything on that framework as far as where you click to do things. And then last year, we brought the products together into a UI. They were still the workflows weren't tied together yet, but that was one important step for us. And then this year, what you'll see is really cohesive integrated workflows. So this is a single UI framework that's integrated day one and day two workflows across multiple products. I've been a part of this since the beginning. Not easy to do, but hopefully the power that it brings to you is super important. It's super impactful. And then we'll also be eliminating the need for Cloud Blades because we've brought the products together not just at a superficial UI level. The products are actually unified on the back end. From a data model and an automation standpoint, they're actually truly integrated to be able to, so we don't need that middleware any longer. What we'll do is we'll just talk through a few examples of how the products have come together and why that might be important to you. So we previously, and this is, I'm just showing you on the right-hand side, hey, we've totally revamped the experience. We've got an integrated application experience going forward, where we have all the app telemetry. We mentioned earlier, we talked about application telemetry. We actually measure all of that at a very granular level. So we're looking at, again, a NIT success and failure and transaction failure. So think three-way handshake problems. That's from a monitoring standpoint. By the way, by default, the system actually takes that. And if we detect an app reachability problem, we'll move traffic around it automatically. You don't have to even configure it. It just happens. So we do that automatically. Then we give you that back in the form to consume. Hey, you've got a reachability problem, and this is where it's occurring on this application on this path. We also look at the timing at a granular level. What's the timing on a per application basis? Both, again, just the transport round trip time, so the RTT between the actual client and the branch, for example, and the server, which may exist as a SaaS service. Could be Microsoft Office, for example. We capture that RTT, give it back to you, and then we also look at the server response time as well. So measure the SRT. And as a practitioner, if you think about as an network operator, we've always been at the mercy of proving ourselves innocent from a network standpoint. That's always been the case, at least for me in my multiple network jobs over the years. We got to prove ourselves innocent. And what we integrated from day one are the tools to do that, where you can very cleanly and distinctly say, this is a round trip time problem, a transport issue, which could be on the wide open internet. It could be on your network. And then we also break apart server response time. And those types of things are very easy to pick apart in our solution. So you have, I think one of our early customers, they coined the term the mean time to innocence. And that's what they called some various graphs and charts in our solution was the mean time to innocence chart. So anyway, some to think about, and we're making that experience even better as the products come together in this next phase. Next is you think about the mentioned ADEM RN, and what is ADEM? Autonomous Digital Experience Management. That is a kind of a platform that exists across, again, our portfolio, whether it be a mobile user client running on my laptop right now, embedded into the operating system, or in Prisma Access. an agent that monitors app experience around the clock. So this is, Prisma SD-WAN monitors real user traffic when it's there, but then ADEM actually monitors synthetic traffic. And there's value in having that complementary nature of both synthetic traffic because it's always there, and what the experience is around the clock, and also the real user traffic. So they're very complementary data sets. So you can take that. Now it's actually embedded natively into the UI. So before this recent update that's occurring imminently, it's two different screens you have to click on. Now I can see in one screen, I can see my branch transport or site connectivity health, in addition to my site application experience score. So these are, again, one focusing on connectivity health and the other focusing on the application experience. And obviously, connectivity can affect application experience. So you may see those two things move down in tandem, but not always. So that they are very complementary. And now those workflows are tightly integrated and the data is there baked into your SD-WAN centric view of the system. And next, so you think about integration. Prisma SD-WAN is really just one type of data center that you can deploy or data center connectivity. So we have, of course, native Prisma SD-WAN data center sites, but we also have things such as our service connections. Those come from Prisma Access and go to a data center or to a location that may not be Prisma SD-WAN enabled. Similarly, we have ZTNA connectors. This is a new product that we've launched, which allows for inbound application access, so let's say from the internet, inbound into your environment in a secure way, where we provide inspection, actual security inspection on that traffic coming into and being proxied through the environment, all seamless to you, all automated. And this is where you go and manage those connectors and those applications that you've deployed, those private applications you've published into your user infrastructure. And you can see that here listed all from one part of the console. And I mentioned day two operations. So we actually have some pretty big updates to our views in how we manage our incidents and alerts. So we used to call these things events, and they were alarms and alerts. And we, as a team, we said, hey, you know what? We're going to standardize on some names. And these names across all of the Palo Alto NetSec products are going to be incidents and alerts. So we've standardized the names and what we call these things, also how we represent them and show them in the user interface. So what you're seeing here is just a Prisma SD-WAN only view of this. This will look very similar in the case when you go to Prisma Access or SASE as well. You'll see the same objects, the same things, but you'll see more of them because you now have not just SD-WAN, you have other types of things that are related to your security as well, and also for ADEM and incidents that are around synthetic traffic. But anyway, the important thing is that we have standardized this across the infrastructure. We're giving you detailed views and how you want to see it, both across the system-defined severity. You define the priority based upon your policy. So priority is defined by you. You can say this thing is a P1, this thing is a P5, however you want to classify it, a very granular policy framework for you to define that. And then also, hey, I want to see my most important incidents here. Show these to me, the most important recent incidents. And then you can see, again, the full list. You can add filters, do all these things you would expect to drill down into a specific site or a specific type of problem. You can see the incident details. So you can see the status of the incident, all the parameters about it, what's correlated to it. So correlation is an important part of the platform we added many years ago. I think one of the early promises of SD-WAN was give me telemetry about my network. And we did just that. We gave a lot of telemetry about the network. And our customers said, okay, you've given me what I asked for and maybe a little bit too much. So a couple years ago, we added event correlation and automatic suppression based upon that. So that's, again, part of our AIOps capabilities where we see a set of things happen in the network. We don't just assume those things are unrelated. We actually we'll look and see if they're related in some way. We'll parse through them all. It could be 10 or 100 or 1,000 things that happen at once. We parse through them in real time, and we'll say, okay, these things are all related in some way. And we'll build correlation. We'll build parent-child relationships in those things. We'll automatically suppress the things that are noise and then deliver a root cause to you. And what the whole point of that is, if I think back to operating the network back in the day, you have a major core outage and everybody's calling you at once. Hey, app 1 is down, app 5 is down, can't, phone calls are down. So everything is broken. You have nothing but noise coming to you. You log into SSH into your core switch or router, and oh my God, the logs are scrolling. I can't make sense of what's actually happening here. Something's occurring, but I don't know what it is. That operational noise, we filter it out for you. I'm going to give you this nice root cause on a silver platter. Okay. And then we've given you that root cause on a silver platter. We then give you the remediation steps to go and look and say, okay, well, how can I fix this thing if it's not already obvious to you? Or maybe it's a junior practitioner or junior operator. Hey, here's the steps to go and resolve this thing. Give it to you right in the portal. Really powerful stuff to make your day 2 operations more efficient. And then I mentioned about the policy settings on how you can tune for whatever you need. And this, again, is super, super granular and how you can control it. I won't go through all of that. It would take me probably 15 minutes to go through the full possibility of what you can configure. Just know that whatever your operational needs are, whether it be identifying flapping, like for example, I can say, if I see more than 3 flaps in 11 minutes, whatever the time range might be, the system will find that and say, hey, you've got a flapping event in this site, this VPN, this circuit, this BGP peer, whatever it might be. This thing is flapping, and it's done it in this time ranges. So you have all the details about it. So really powerful stuff from an incident settings and policy perspective. Now, getting into not just application ID being consistent, we also have now standardized on user ID. So think about how you can wrap policy around your business problems. Having from an app performance perspective and a security lens, application ID is super important. So you can understand the application, its performance, and its security needs. Secondly, is around user, knowing who the user is. And this allows us to have a mobile sense of where the user is. Doesn't really matter. It is that user from the coffee shop, that user from the branch, that user from the corporate HQ. Doesn't matter. So user ID is super important. And what we've done is we've brought user ID into Prisma SD-WAN, and that includes, as you would anticipate, for path selection purposes. Okay, so putting this user might get this set of paths, and then the next user might only get the flow path. Let's say it's a guest, for example. Guest or users that don't match a particular user ID could be the empty or null match. They get the low quality of service. It's another way you could do that as well. So it's path, quality of service, and then security. So we all 3 of those policy types support user ID based matches, and each of them have their own use cases on why it's important, right? To limit where a particular user can go from a path selection standpoint, to give the user the appropriate quality of service. And then from a zone-based firewall perspective, which is embedded natively into the branch ION, this is a layer 3 through layer 7 zone-based firewall that's application aware. It's also user aware now. So I can give control and policy on a very granular user basis now, user and or group. We do get those user to IP mappings. We get those from a variety of sources, but we typically, that's going to be coalesced into an NGFW somewhere. Whether they get that through your GP agent or through terminal services agent or through other inline mechanisms. We're going to get that information from NGFW, which then gets distributed dynamically and very scope controlled as to not send everything everywhere to your branch devices for enforcement. So we have a very elegant solution for that, how we pull the information out of NGFW sources, get it into the controller, these IPs match these branches. We'll send those on a controlled basis out to the branch of interest. And then from there, the policies are built and they're consuming that information just as you would expect. So again, you can do that on a per user or per group match in policy. And then the cool part is you can see what users are doing on a per user basis. So one of the really cool things about Prisma SD-WAN is I kind of showed you some screens earlier about per global or per site analytics. We go all the way down to the flow level, and not just what you would think is normal basic flow monitoring. The information that we gather is just shy of a Wireshark capture. So we take all that meta-analysis. The Prisma SD-WAN Ion will take and analyze a given application session throughout the life cycle of it from start to finish. And what you get are up to about 100 different attributes about that application session. And that includes the round trip time, the server response time, the MOS score for your audio traffic, the packet loss, whatever it may be, all that's there on a per application session basis. So very powerful. And now we're actually adding the ability to see who the user is as well. No longer just the source IP or destination IP. You'll see the user context wrapped around that also. You can alternatively filter on a specific user if you like, and then see just the traffic for that user. So I can go in and say, hey, I want to see all the traffic from David, and I can filter on David's user ID, and then now I can see David's traffic. Continuing with the policy theme. So we understand the application, we understand the user. Now we also understand the device. So another important element of delivering granular security into your environment. So what is IoT device ID visibility? Excuse me. So what this is this leverages the Palo Alto Networks IoT device ID capabilities. And this is an advanced security service that we offer. And now Prisma SD-WAN in the branch. Again, this is actually just phase one. We've got much bigger plans for this year. In phase one, we actually look at both all the DHCP traffic going through the environment, as well as the ARP traffic. We take every bit of that and we inspect it in line. We pull the tables out of the devices, all the ARP tables, and we supply that into the data lake. And this is the Cortex data lake, which is available multi-platform. We'll contribute to the Cortex data lake in GFWs, Prisma Access, Prisma SD-WAN. The IoT security service takes that information and analyzes the behaviors of, number one, they look at the MAC IDs and other attributes of that traffic, the behavior of it, and then establishes a verdict on, do I trust this device or not? And then it passes that verdict into Prisma Access, where that traffic can be blocked, can be allowed, or maybe it's some subset of very minimally permissive set of applications or services that device can talk to. So that is, again, very crucial to making sure that we understand the device as well as part of the broader policy. Now, we have some bigger plans for what we're going to do with IoT inside of Prisma SD-WAN. Maybe next time that we talk in a couple months, I can tell you a little more about those. But again, we have a really big plan here for what we're going to do. We've also added enhanced our IPv6 support. So we've added some more use cases. So we supported basic VPN transport previously, and then we've added a whole bunch of LAN support where we can do IPv6 on the LAN side as well. So to support those end-to-end internal use cases. V6 is one of those things most people don't need it. I know of 2 customers in all of the thousands I've talked to that actually do need it. So we build that support for those customers that need it, and some carriers as well. Now we've increased our scale for some of our virtual platforms. Nothing too crazy there. It's up to 7 gigs per second on the virtual platforms. One of the things I wanted to mention is kind of a little known thing about Prisma SD-WAN. And it's a particular strength that when you look at the value of it, it's pretty compelling. So in a typical branch office where you need high availability, where you need to have two circuits or three circuits and dual WAN edge devices, um, there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that. And what we did many years ago when we designed our high availability is we said, okay, is there a way that we can pull this off? Where I've got, a branch where its uptime is absolute critical, which we've got customers where every single second is important. If they have any downtime, that means that some medical gear doesn't get shipped to a customer who's doing a surgery at 5 o'clock in the morning. Or it could be a hospital, or it could be a utility, or a factory, or anything. Any second of downtime is just unacceptable. So they design for super high availability. And in prior years, I mean, if you think about a circuit is actually that handoff is a single point of failure. So you have to plug that into a device and it could fail. And we've kind of mitigated that a little bit. The proverbial we, as practitioners, we said, okay, we'll bring it into a breakout switch. If it's an Ethernet handoff, we'll bring it into a breakout switch and we'll make it available to both devices. Well, the breakout switch is still a single point of failure. So there was not a really good way to solve that problem. And what we said is let's solve those problems of limiting single points of failure. So we very creatively leverage hardware fail to wire capabilities. So these are hardware bypass ports. And the short version is if you have an ion for whatever reason, let's say a critical process crashes, the actual flow forwarding process, or it loses power, or the power supply dies, or whatever might happen. We've seen any number of struck by lightning or any cases like that. Um, if that ion, if any of those things happen, that ion goes from an active mode and where it's terminating that physical circuit into it. And those electrical relays, their default state is to fail electrically closed. So it'll be bridging essentially. And by having that circuit also cabled over to the other device, now you've got essentially a physical wire in this magnetic relay that went closed as soon as the device lost power, or again, that critical process crashed. And now you've got that circuit active on the second device. And that happens both directions, A to B and B to A. And the magic of that is, even if you lose a device, no longer do you have to lose circuit capacity. And that's a really compelling thing in an environment where uptime is critical. And we see that uptime criticality across a multitude of different verticals. It is just, there's just no compromise there. There's no compromise on uptime. And we provide a solution that's quite unique in the industry by making it to where you don't have to plan for a circuit outage in the event that a device dies. So no more single points of failure. In line with that, now we also, as of this software release, we can do that with cellular. So you think about, well, cellular is a RF-based medium, and then I have Ethernet, which is how we would connect those two together. Well, the cool part is this is kind of a subset of the use case, but in our model, now you can have an active ion can have access to the backup ion's cellular connectivity. So what that would look like, and this is a crude diagram that I built, but the ion on the right has a cellular connection, and it's the backup, hence the B. And then the ion on the left is marked with an A. The ion on the left has access to the ion on the right cellular connection. So now you've got two um, two physical wireline carriers. One could be internet and MPLS, two MPLS, two internet, any number of internet. We don't care. We have no functional limit on internet or MPLS. We've seen up to 5 different deployed in the wild, 5 different carriers. There's no functional limit here. It's how many interfaces do you have to connect stuff to, which we support sub interfaces too. So it's to your heart's content. The important part is we actually support using that wireless carrier on the backup device actively, and that's cellular bypass. Okay, now let's get to some Q&A.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great presentation, Bill. I learned a lot. I mean, there's just so much that you can do with this Palo Alto network gear and the software. You all have done an amazing job. Now is the time for the audience to get all your answers to your most compelling questions. If you have a question for Bill, now is the time to get it in. I'm going to go ahead and start off with this question from Lynn out there in the audience, who wants to know if you have any advice on how to handle integration challenges. They're saying the integration of SD-WAN with existing networking and security infrastructure can be challenging, especially when dealing with legacy systems. Bill, any advice there?
Yeah, I think there's n number of of existing approaches to solving problems. Some solutions want to consume syslog, they want to consume NetFlow, they want to do go and grab SNMP tables. The good news is we support all those. So if you have a device or a solution that wants to receive syslog or NetFlow on a per flow basis for our NetFlow, IP fix specifically, we can get that to your device. That's not a problem. That's at a base, we'll say, basic and tackling network solution level. We did, also briefly touch on cloud blades as well, and those are more formalized, turnkey and elegant solutions that we've built over the years. And that's I hear the word legacy mentioned, or legacy systems. Legacy I would think would be syslog, SNMP, IPFix, NetFlow. And then also, like, the more modern solutions. We talked about, there's integration with Zscaler, for example. We support that. We support, of course, all the cloud integrations. We talked through many of those options, just a few of them actually. There's many more of them that we support. Just talked to a few of them today. But we've, operationalizing and meeting you where you are from a network standpoint is important, and we haven't come across a challenge yet that we can't solve. So happy to engage further to understand your details.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, a lot of possibilities there. Next question, they say, I've heard a lot about networking today. How will Palo Alto Networks address the SASE market?
Yes, we've been operating, on cohesive parallel paths, we'll say, for since we got bought by Palo Alto Networks. One of the things that it didn't occur to me that it was a big of a sea change as it was, but it's big again, almost 3 years to the day since Palo Alto Networks announced that it was acquiring CloudGenix. And the Gartner perspective, speaking to the analysts, uh, just in the past few weeks, they basically said it was literally the SASE shot heard around the world. It was going to be that acquisition defined a new era of both best in class SD-WAN and best in class security. And so we've been driving down those parallel paths of making and continue to drive forward the standalone SD-WAN value, while also incrementally working to bring the solutions together carefully, methodically, so we don't make a mess. It's easy to make a mess and jam products together and create a mess for your customers, a mess for your support teams and your engineers and your developers. And we've made efforts to not do that. Be very careful in how we plan this out. And we're now this next phase I'm really excited about. And you'll see it if you're an existing customer. You'll see this show up in a matter of weeks. If you're a prospective customer, maybe you'll see it when you first turn things on, when you start a trial with us from a SASE perspective. We brought these things together. You saw a small piece of it today. Brought these things together in an elegant way. So we're solving, at the management and operations layer, at the security data layer. We've really brought together a cohesive solution.
Excellent. Yeah, I know bringing those kinds of solutions together is not easy to do. So I'm glad that you all are doing it, intelligently and to come out with the perfect solution in the end. So exciting changes on the way. Another question here. They say we run a NetOps and DevOps infrastructure model. How can Prisma SD-WAN fit into our operational model?
That's a good question. I would say that at least from my observation, is probably the 5% case now. A lot of folks are like me. They're an old router jock. I saw your CCIE numbers way lower than mine. Mine's in the 30,000. So either way, I'm an old
Yeah.
router jock. So sometimes it's hard to teach an old router jock new tricks. But I think there's a lot of folks that have made an effort to really transform how they operate their network. And they've done that through leveraging modern tools, like being API driven versus being like CLI configuration driven. And the really cool thing about what we built is we were all network folks that either founded CloudGenix or that came on later, but with an understanding that, hey, we've been doing this the same way for a very long time. How can we do it different? So everything that we do is uh, is not just thought through of like a UI workflow or a configuration template workflow, but making the APIs consumable natively. And if you've never dealt with this hands-on, there's a distinct difference between building a UI and making the API work versus thinking, okay, here's a UI and it can do these things. And then here's an API and designing in a way that can be consumed without your user interface. And there's a drastic difference. And there's not a
Mhm.
single thing that we build in this product that isn't thought through with that lens. We have, some of my friends and coworkers, that's their world. They focus on automation of the product and not just, the UI aspect. So that's a critical part of what we build from the ground up. We do that. Every single thing that we enhance or do is seen through that lens as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, because like you said, so many times APIs are just kind of an afterthought that accomplish checking some kind of box. Like, yeah, we've got that, but it's great that you put that sort of thought
Yeah.
and intelligent design into this. Um, what about common challenges? They're wanting to know here. What are some of the most common challenges that you're seeing and hearing about from customers?
Yeah, I mean, um, oddly enough, I think SaaS application visibility is one that I hear a lot about.
Hmm.
If you don't control the entirety of the network transport, and you're sometimes you don't have the tools that you might need to be able to diagnose or understand your application performance. So that's something. Again, kind of an odd side note about our product. We designed it to deploy inline transparently. That was our first deployment mode 8 years ago, and just watch traffic. We called it monitor mode. We rarely see those anymore, but that was one like early value prop that we gave to customers was, hey, you don't have to even do SD-WAN. Just put us into monitor mode and just watch your traffic performance. We don't need to be bookended, nothing there. So I think we still hear that today, oddly enough, SaaS application visibility or even internal application visibility. In some cases, you don't even have that without some advanced agents running. Um, that's probably the biggest one that I hear still. The migrations from MPLS that are still occurring to this day. Um, Shockingly, MPLS has been around forever, and customers are still looking for ways to get off of it and not endure the pain of just dealing with the redistribution problems and all the routing hacks you have to do to make that work. So I think we see that a lot, and we solve that problem in spades by, hey, we're going to get rid of the routing protocols. Our first tagline was networks without networking, which is a little bit of a oxymoron, but what it meant was you don't have to worry about all the complexity of the networking. We'll take care of it for you, all at the API and operations layer.
That's amazing. Yeah, because we need less complexity. We need more simplicity in the world of technology. So it's great that you're solving those challenges. It looks like we're starting to run out of time here. 1 minute left in the event. Last question I want to ask you, Bill, is what should people do to get started with Palo Alto Networks and SD-WAN?
That's a good one to close on. We love to spread our stuff. We are proud of the solution, and we're confident that it will solve your business challenges and do it in a way that makes real good sense for you as an operator or practitioner. So you can sign up for a free trial from us. That's available in the handout section of the platform today. So you can go there and check that out, and we'll get you started on a free trial.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like a great opportunity for folks to try this out for themselves. Again, completely free, super simple form. Just fill it out and you could get started with SD-WAN today. So All right. Well, this has been really excellent. I've learned a lot. I know the audience has as well. Bill, it's been great having you on the event today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, of course, to Palo Alto Networks for presenting on the event today. Again, check out the Prisma SD-WAN free trial right there at the top of your handouts tab for more information. And with that, it's now my pleasure to announce the winner of our Amazon $250 gift card. This one's going to Robert Goodman from California. Congratulations. And we'll also reach out to our best question prize winner as well. Thank you to everyone who joined us on the webinar today. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.